I'm Clodagh Harrington. I'm Associate Professor of American Politics here at Montfort University in Leicester. And I'm going to talk about Barack Obama and the 2008 election campaign. So I suppose when you think about Obama, the first thing to really consider is his personal backstory and how just unique and amazing that really was. So before we ever get to sort of campaign strategy and the rest, I think it's really important to remember, who he was as a person, and, not to sound like a cliche, but to say that really his story was very much the embodiment of the American dream. So even a cynic, I think, has to acknowledge that. So if we think about where he's from, first of all, he's born in Hawaii, which by mainland American standards is a bit far away anyway. And then he has a kind of added otherness, if you like, of having a Kenyan dad. His mum is from Kansas. And what he does, I think, is really sort of marry this whole family story together in a really, really engaging way. And the fact that he is of mixed heritage is really groundbreaking for so many obvious reasons. And he manages to pitch that balance very appropriately and therefore appeal to an awful lot of people. Now, as a kind of a reminder, he did not appeal to everyone by any stretch of the imagination. If you think back to the who voted for whom in 2008, he gets 52.9% of the vote. So it's not a landslide. Okay, I think that's really important to remember. But nonetheless, for the people that he inspired, he was an incredibly exciting candidate. So I guess it would be useful to just maybe mention a few things about why 2008 was different, in the sense that you didn't have an incumbent, which is quite unusual. George W. Bush had run his 8 years. His vice president was not interested in running. You had a lot of news, or potential news, if you like, as in the fact that Barack Obama was African-American mixed heritage was new. The fact that Hillary Clinton, his Democrat rival at the time, was female, obviously. So whatever happened there was going to be some glass ceilings broken, whatever way that dice rolled. And even in the Republican side of things, John McCain, he's older, he's white, he's conservative, he's very 20th century in a lot of ways, but he still positions himself as a bit of a renegade, a maverick, a break from what's come before, because everyone is really quite exhausted of 8 years of the Bush administration. Even Bush fans, and this is really important, thinking about how things rolled out for Obama, there were a lot of Republicans who were really tired of the Bush years and what Bush had done for the country, and not least the fact that Bush was quite a big government conservative, which is a bit of a contradiction in terms. So Obama comes in, he wins the nomination for his party. That's a huge surprise, in the sense that, people had their money on Hillary Clinton, and it was almost assumed that Hillary was going to be the president, never mind assuming that Hillary was going to be the nominee for her party. So the fact that this whippersnapper comes up the inside lane and takes over and basically wins the nomination in a really surprising way. Some people are thrilled by this, and others are angry, really angry. So the Democrat Party is really quite split coming up to that 2008 race. All those tens of millions of people who had their hopes and dreams on Hillary are not necessarily going to wake up the next day and say, oh, well, he's our candidate now, we're behind him. There was a lot of work to be done to bring the party back together. And a lot of people said that actually they would just stay home on election day rather than vote for not Hillary as they saw it. So that's the kind of the fractious story of what's going on throughout the Democrat primaries. Meanwhile, John McCain is just pootling along, very steady. He's impressive. He's not controversial. He's kind of his own man. Like I said, he tries to distance himself from what comes before. And he makes this really interesting choice of vice presidential candidate, and he chooses Sarah Palin, who is a very unlikely choice. A lot of people didn't really know who she was. She was the governor of Alaska, very well known and very popular in Alaska, but really in terms of brand recognition, people did not know who she was really beyond her own realm. And so she was surprising, she was exciting, she was controversial, she got everybody talking, And it did seem for a while that, McCain could romp ahead to victory, not least because when Palin comes on board in August 2008, the amount of funding that suddenly happens within 48 hours of Palin's name being added to the ticket, the Republicans receive, I think it's $10 million in the space of 48 hours just on the basis of her, and that's how exciting she is. But if we think about the money and how the issue of money played out in 2008, Obama just gets the prize for that completely, because McCain was very solid, very respectable at fundraising. Palin was a huge shot in the arm, as I've just mentioned. But when you look at what Obama did, I mean, he has a staggering capacity to raise money. And what's really interesting about how he does it is the fact that it is millions and millions and millions of really small donations, people who've got $5 or $10 or $20 or $50. Regular people who don't normally feel engaged in the political process are going, okay, I want to be a part of this. I don't have much money, but I can give something. And they feel connected. And it's very easy to donate. You can do it on your phone, whereas previously it might have been a kind of a bureaucratically tedious process to donate, and a lot that just negates a lot of people from being involved. So the way that he fundraised was absolutely revolutionary. And I think the other thing that is really worth noting in relation to the Obama campaign is his use of technology, or his team's use of technology. It wasn't all him, but he has the good fortune to be running for office when the whole kind of social media revolution is really at its peak. It was there to an extent in 2004, but not as much at all. He has things that might sound a bit quaint now, like MySpace and that, but that's what was going on in 2008. And his team, they're young, they're tech savvy, they're dynamic, and they really know what younger voters are going to want and how to draw them in. So you have this really kind of unprecedented marriage, if you like, of cutting edge technology and then also traditional campaigning methods. Because if you rely just on technology, you might get the kids, but you won't get the older people necessarily. So they have literally, they're using technology and then they're sort of marrying that up with things like door-to-door campaigning, pounding the streets, knocking on doors, working out which streets in which town need a visit from the Obama people to say, are you registered to vote? Are you planning on voting? Who are you going to vote for? Have you thought about our guy? Here's what he's offering. And so that sort of human-to-human contact and the amount of people that signed up to volunteer for his campaign, again, was staggering. So you have youth and dynamism and energy. And I recall one of Hillary Clinton's campaign team said very disparagingly, he said, Obama's campaign people look like Facebook. That was his quote. And it was meant to be an insult, but actually it was a huge compliment, because there were Facebook employees actually leaving Facebook to go and work on the campaign. That's how inspired they were. And they're taking their technological prowess with them. And so the campaign it's incredibly exciting. It really is. And then we sort of know the outcome. You have the Obama victory. It's amazing. Like I said, it's not a landslide at all. 45.7% or whatever vote for John McCain. And we have to remember those people, because they're going to come back later and be quite angry at where the direction that the country is going in. But I think, we have to give credit to Obama for running a stunning campaign, for being incredibly passionate and committed to the issues that he platforms on. And then I guess the maybe the punchline with this is the idea that he's campaigning in poetry and it's all splendid and wonderful. And during his, well, not just his campaign, all of the campaigns, throughout the campaign, the economic collapse is basically happening. So the nation's economy is unraveling at a pretty fast pace. So whatever amazing campaign promises you were making along the way, the sudden harsh reality of governing in prose sort of comes overnight, basically. And the Obama team have to step up to the fact that the nation's economy has just had a cardiac arrest, and they have to deal with that on top of all their hopes and dreams and aspirations that they had been campaigning on.